Welcome everybody to another episode of the Pocho podcast. This is Albert Campo once again. We got some important things to discuss today, and sorry about the delay or the absence for a little bit of time, but we're back and we're going to continue on with the journey of the Pocho. So let's begin by giving a shout out to our friends at the Chivas del Norte podcast. If you are a Chivas fan, if you are a Mexican soccer fan, you might know who these dudes are, especially living in the United States because they speak English. And they have a podcast. So let's go to one of these episodes and let's analyze a specific episode here where our main man Rigo, Te extraño Rigo, is reading a tweet. Which happens to be in Spanish, but let's take a listen real quick and understand sort of what this is all about.
His tweet is, "Todo bien con Guzmán, solo me chirria," which is like, I don't like que lo cataloguen como creativo y que quieran que sea quien le quitará el rol a alguien que sí lo es. Sumar un rematador sin antes tener cómo encontrarlo de forma continúa sería. I sound like I don't know how to fucking read Spanish. Sumar un rematador sin antes tener cómo encontrarlo de forma continua. He wrote this all wrong. This isn't me.
Okay, so he wrote it wrong. Interesting. So let's look at this. Let's look at this tweet that he's referring to and that he was reading on the podcast. So this is the Pocho lifestyle, dude. Now let me just, before we get into this tweet, let me just give you a background on my Spanish speaking abilities. So I grew up with Mexican parents, and I've told this before. They didn't teach me Spanish. I learned Spanish through, as a missionary for my church, but I went through a course of learning in 2 months how to do basic Spanish, verbs, conjugation, all that. So I went through like a textbook type of instruction. Then after 2 months of that, I went into Mexico straight working with Mexicans and talking with Mexicans, native speakers, and learning it like in an immersion. Like I had to speak, I had to do everything. And that's how I learned it. So that's sort of a little bit different than from a lot of Mexican Americans who grow up and hear Spanish being spoke by their parents, but their primary language is English. And then, so they learn it from their parents by listening, but then they may not, pick up on certain specific conjugations or vowels or, details in the Spanish language, which I think was the issue with Rigo here. But let's look at the tweet because, and let me just read it with my messed up Spanish. Todo bien con Guzmán. Solo me chirría que lo cataloguen como creativo y que querían que se quitara el rol a alguien que sí lo es. Sumar un rematador sin antes tener cómo encontrarlo de forma continua sería como menos irresponsable. Okay, so there's two things that sort of messed Rigo up, and let's go back and shoot, man, I don't want to. Let's go back and try to listen to this.
Basically, what he's saying is that that his role isn't naturally to sit behind. His tweet is, "Todo bien con Guzmán, solo me chirria," which is like, I don't like que lo cataloguen como creativo y que quieran que sea quien le quitará el rol a alguien que sí lo.
Okay, so right here, catalogar is like it's sort of hard to pronounce when you're like you catalog someone. So that's sort of like tricky. Creativo y que querían que se quitara. So he used the verb conjugation, and there's no, I mean, Mexicans use accents, properly most times because they're essential. Guzman, he puts the accent there. Querían, he puts the accent there because without the accent, a lot of times these words are messed up. Now, quitará, he said quitará, but there is no accent in the A. So quitará is the normal verb that you would say, like he would take away. But this is not he will take away. It's like he would. It's I don't know the exact name of this conjugation of this verb, but it's actually no accent, just like he wrote it. So he sort of got tricked up there, and it's with another word as well. We'll get to, but so that's pronounced kitara, not kitara. So that was a little bit tricky. The verb conjugation. So that's, he could have also said no, that's it's just kitara. There is another way, like hubiera is one way to say something, and then hubiese is another way with the s ending, sort of. But yeah, so that was a little bit tricky. And then let's continue on.
Sumar un rematador sin antes tener como encontrarlo de forma continua sería. I sound like I don't know how to fucking read Spanish.
Okay, so de forma continua. So he used the continue verb as like he was continuing, but it's not continua because there's no accent again. Seria, there's the accent. So this guy, Ricardo Flores, he's using accents properly, but it sort of tripped him up again because there's no accent, just like the word quitara in the word continua, which he pronounced it that way. It's continua. So that's continuous. So with he couldn't find a continuous form, which would be at least irresponsible. So continuous is different from continue, the verb. So this is not actually a verb, which sort of tripped him up. This is a verb, it's just conjugated differently. This isn't a verb, and there's no accent, so it's not continua. Like I'm gonna continuar. It's it's no verb. It's a continuous. So it's what is it? An adjective? No English major, but so continua. So that tripped him up also, and that's understandable, man. My man Rigo, I ain't gonna diss him.
Sumar un rematador sin antes tener como encontrarlo de forma continua. He wrote this all wrong. This isn't me. Basically, what he's saying is that like.
So yeah, I mean, so he did write it correctly, but yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, man. It's the Pocho lifestyle, dude. We come up through these things, and I'm gonna give it props to Ricardo Flores. He's I don't know. I guess he's from Mexico, a reporter. I was just looking at it. Guadalajara, maybe he's from. So yeah, he knows how to speak. He's putting the proper accents in the proper places. These are just tricky things, man. And I think from my background of learning the language, textbook wise initially, and then being in country sort of helps me a little bit out. The only problem is that I learned that at a older age, man. I was like 19. Whereas it's a lot easier if you're a little chamaco learning these things. So yeah, that's our man Rigo. So we miss him. Chivas del Norte, saludos. Varo, who's a fan, I guess, of the podcast, and he's a fan particularly because of like a little bit of drama, a little bit of Liga MX in English Twitter reviews or Twitter comment reviews and things like that, which are pretty funny. They ruffled a little feathers though, so I don't know if I'm going to continue to do those. I might, but I won't be. I mean, I guess I didn't really call anyone out. I mean, I just showed that we're all pochos here. We're all we all have our Americanized aspects to our lives, which I guess offends people sometimes. But hopefully Rigo's cool, man, because we all trip up, we all make mistakes on these things. But now let's move on to a different topic, which is the Blood In, Blood Out movie. There was a guy who was talking about it and like what Mexican Americans think about it. Now, let's go to what Mexicans think about it. I know one Mexican born in Mexico, has kids born in Mexico, lives in LA. Whatever experience he has with cholos, with Mexican Americans, with Chicanos, with Pochos, whatever, he has told me directly that he despises the Chicano culture, the Pocho culture, as a Mexican. Now, I have spoken with Mexicans in Austin, in East Austin, And I've been told that all the Chicanos are always fighting with the blacks, and they're always, they're in gangs and they're always fighting and shooting each other up and causing all kinds of problems. Chicanos were mentioned. So it's not really the Mexicans moving to the United States, but it's the children that are growing up and getting bad habits, getting into gangs, getting into whatever problems. And so this brings us to Blood In, Blood Out. Now look at these dudes. The movie you might find pretty funny. There's like, some good LA like Spanglish and cholo talk and like a little story going on in the movie. But is this something you as a Pocho Mexican American, want to be proud of? This dude, like he becomes a cop and what is this? This dude's not the right dude, man. And these are like different dudes, but like Miklo, I got the wrong picture. Anyway, you got Miklo who go to jail. You got the other dude who was doing drugs like for years and years, and all these problems. And it might be realistic, but we don't want to glorify that. We don't want to know about all that aspect. We want to know about these types of dudes, man. Like a Mexican American in a bow tie, looking all handsome, getting Olympic medals and in the ring and being a successful businessman. That's the type of Mexican American we need to showcase. Like these types of dudes, man. I don't know what I just grabbed this picture. I don't know what this picture is all about. But, in suits, being successful. Doing things right. Not this kind of stuff, man. This stuff is funny, like for movies. And there's a real life to it. But nobody wants their kids growing up to be in this type of environment. Even though we see like I saw like a music video and all that kind of stuff. So let's keep it real, my friends. You watch all that movie and just have a fun time, but understand that it's real. You don't want no part of it. So that's today's episode, man. Hope you enjoy. Shout out to Chivas del Norte. Keep it up. I hear they got they're doing a men's podcast and a women's podcast. So good stuff. Rigo, te extraño, te extrañamos. Saludos a todos, and we will check you guys later.